Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. So today we're revisiting the Fujifilm X-S10. And I made the jump to Fujifilm a little over a year ago, and I do not regret it. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what I love about this camera, as well as some of the things that I don't like all that much after having used it for a year. So yeah. Let's get started. So the design of the X-S10 is actually the first of its kind in the Fujifilm lineup. And that's because most Fujifilm cameras have the retro film camera look going for it, which I think looks really nice. But to somebody who doesn't know all that much about film cameras and analog cameras, it might seem a little intimidating, which I think puts some people off of the brand like Fujifilm in general. And I think that's what the X-S10 was meant for. It was meant to attract people, draw people in who are a little more accustomed to the contemporary design of most mirrorless cameras into the world of Fujifilm. Like me. Before I switched over to Fuji, I was using the Panasonic Lumix G85, and when I switched over, the body, the design was very familiar. It was comfortable to use because, you know, switching over to a completely new brand has its own set of learning curves, but luckily the design was not one of them. So very similar to the contemporary design of most cameras, it has a big grip, which makes shooting with it for long periods of time very comfortable. You get a lot of dials that are very easily accessible and a decent amount of customizable buttons as well. The overall form factor is very lightweight and compact, so it's going to be great for traveling as well as street photography. Now, the only thing I don't like about this camera is that there are 4 custom dials, and sadly you can't set any of them for video. Like, I would have loved to have C1 set for 24p with the appropriate settings, C2 for 60, C3 for 120, and so on, because having to dive into the settings to change your frame rate and then change the settings appropriate for that frame rate is a little tedious, and honestly it's kind of a waste of time. So yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about its design, but overall Fujifilm did a really good job in terms of ergonomics and all of that good stuff. So yeah. So this camera has the exact same sensor as the brand's current flagship hybrid, which is the X-T4, as well as other cameras that were released in the past 2 years. So this is the latest sensor that Fujifilm has to offer right now, and although it might seem a little dated, it still holds up. I personally don't have any complaints about the image quality because I think it's great for both photo and video, especially at this price point. I've been using the X-S10 and the X-E4 to shoot all of my videos for the past year. By the way, the X-E4 has the exact same sensor as well. So I'm not going to go into a deep dive about the settings and all that, but what I love about this camera is that it is a fantastic 1080p camera. Not everybody has a computer that can edit 4K footage, and honestly that kind of seems like the norm right now. I recently switched over to 4K, but honestly I still have a hard time telling the difference between the two. So if you want to shoot full HD 24p 200 megabit videos on this, don't worry about it. It's gonna look great, especially on a platform like YouTube. Like, you can barely tell the difference, especially if you're watching on a phone. Plus, with full HD, you get very high frame rates. You can shoot up to 240 frames per second, which is insane for a body that's this small. So if you like shooting a lot of slow motion B-roll, the X-S10 is a very good option. You also get in-body image stabilization with this, which is insane for how small it is, but yeah, that's a big plus if you like shooting handheld, which I do. Most of the B-roll clips you see are handheld, and it really does a good job of getting rid of those micro jitters, especially for lenses that don't have OIS built in, like the brand new 33 f1.4. It just works really, really well. So if you're thinking of starting any kind of video work in 2022 like YouTube, and you have your eyes on the X-S10, I can say that it is a very, very capable camera for its price point. Not to mention the kit lenses that you can get with it. You can get the 15-45 as well as the 18-55 with the X-S10, and I made a video comparing them both. They're both great lenses to start out with, so if you're interested in finding out more, link somewhere up here. As for photography, the X-S10 is amazing at shooting stills, just like any other Fujifilm camera. I'm not that well versed in the world of photography, but here are a few sample photos. one of my favorite things about shooting with a Fujifilm camera are the colors. They are beautiful. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to do a lot of color grading in post because I like to keep my workflow as simple as possible, but in no way am I compromising with Fuji's film simulations. I mean, they're all just so good. I usually shoot with classic chrome with a few settings tweaked in camera, and I don't usually do a lot of color correction. I mean, I do a few tweaks every now and then, but more often than not, I am very much happy with the end result. And if you want a little more flexibility, you can always shoot an F-Log, although it is 8-bit 420, so it's not ideal for extensive color grading, but the option is there if you want it. Now for photos, I don't always shoot in classic chrome. I sometimes use Provia, which is their more general standard film simulation, as well as classic neg. I really like that. Astia, and maybe even Velvia if I want the colors to really punch me in the face. Overall, Fuji colors are amazing. Another thing I love about this camera is the fully articulating touchscreen, or the flippy screen. Now I know a lot of people aren't super in love with this kind of setup, and I totally get that if you're a still shooter, because the tilt up screen is a lot more practical in that sense. But as somebody who shoots a lot of video by themselves, this helps out so much. Just being able to see yourself and just, you know, monitor what you're recording is so handy. Also, the fact that you can like fold it inside and just have the little LCD protected while it's in a bag with other things is so nice. So let's go on to the things that I don't like all that much about the X-S10, and that's the electronic viewfinder, or the EVF. I just find it a little too small and a little uncomfortable to use. I mean, it's still usable. You can still use it in daylight. It's just okay, but it's better than having no EVF. Now, another thing I don't like is the battery life. So the X-S10 also uses the NPW126S batteries that are used pretty much on every other Fuji camera other than the X-T4, and it's just really small. It's not that great. I mean, I have 2 original batteries and 2 third-party batteries, but I usually get by with just the 2 when I'm outside. A battery will last about 2 to 3 hours depending on what you're doing, but yeah, it's definitely the thing I like the least about the X-S10, but it is what it is, you know? This problem isn't limited to just the X-S10, because like I said, it's used on pretty much every other camera as well. So for long talking headshots like this, I usually just have a dummy battery plugged in. It's just much easier like that. One last thing I am going to complain about is the fact that this is not weather sealed. It's just a little scarier to bring outside into like bad weather conditions, like whether it's drizzling a little bit. Of course, don't bring your camera out when it's absolutely pouring, but yeah, just not having it weather sealed is a little scary. I went out and shot a lot in the snow, and it got a little drenched. I was a little scared, but luckily it hasn't broken yet. So it's a little bit weather resistant, I would say. I don't know, I wouldn't push it, but just the fact that it isn't weather sealed is a little sketchy. So overall, after having used this camera for over a year, I can say that the X-S10 is something I did not regret investing in. I think it's a great hybrid camera for you to hone your skills with. I just think it's fantastic. I mean, I was going for the X-T4 over the X-S10 initially, but I'm glad that I stuck with it, because in the world of APS-C cameras, even though it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles that the X-T4 has, the X-S10 still holds its own. You get an ergonomic design with great image quality. It's light, it's compact, it's fairly affordable. You get great colors as well. It's just a great little camera. So if you were eyeing the X-S10, I definitely think you should go for it. Not to mention that Fujifilm is definitely upping their game when it comes to their brand new lenses. I currently bought the 33 f1.4, and my gosh, it is so good. So it just proves that it's a great time to be a Fuji X shooter. So that is pretty much that for this video. Hopefully you guys got something from it. And if you guys have any more questions about the X-S10, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will try to answer as best as I can. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.